Good afternoon and welcome to the MUZEO's online writing class. I am Carol Latham, the Community Outreach Coordinator for the MUZEO, Museum and Cultural Center in Anaheim. And it is our wish that you and your family and circle of concern are all well and healthy. The MUZEO is a cultural and community hub with the mission to engage the community in exploring and celebrating our diverse heritage, culture, and the arts. And we do this through creative programming like this, events and exhibits. We appreciate you taking the time to join us on this Sunday afternoon. This afternoon's presentation is with Lynette M Smith, who is an author, professional copy editor, and if you wish to learn the special aspects of writing letters that will resonate and be appreciated by the recipient, you came to the right place. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please add them to the chat, and we will do our very best to make sure that they're answered during the presentation. With Thanksgiving being just mere weeks away, this class is very timely. There's so many people who have influenced our lives in small ways and in big ways. And we never seem to take the chance or the time to acknowledge their contribution to our lives. So this is a perfect opportunity for you to do that. Who would you like to acknowledge? Maybe there's that someone who's still with us, maybe they're not, but you can still write them a meaningful, heartfelt letter. Here's a unique opportunity to write that today. So it is my pleasure to introduce Lynette M Smith, who believes that together we can change the world, one heartfelt letter at a time. Lynette, welcome.
Thank you very much, Carol. I'm so glad to be here. Gosh, it was so exciting back in 2008 when our son got married and we were at the rehearsal dinner, and he and his bride-to-be each came out with a heartfelt letter of appreciation in a frame like this and presented it to each of the sets of parents. And they had their best man and maid of honor read those aloud while they stood next to their own parents. And each of those letters talked about what it was like growing up in the household, what in this family, what qualities that they most appreciated about, my son most appreciated about my husband, his father, and then the qualities he most appreciated about me. And then he wrote about the types of values he had learned growing up that he planned to bring to his own marriage. And then he thanked us for what we had contributed to his life in that way. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. There really wasn't. Everybody was just golly. And when I think about it, my hand goes right here to my heart. I remember, and that letter today holds a place of honor in our home. And every time I read it, this is really an important takeaway here. Every time I read that letter, and it's been 12 years, my eyes well up again and my hand goes to my heart again. And I feel just as good as I did the first time I heard it. And that is lasting power. That really is. When you want to talk about the season of gift giving and of Thanksgiving, that is lasting. This is not some fleeting little something that's just gone. It's a letter that could even become a part of family legacy after the person you've written to has passed away, because that letter will end up in the hands of their descendants and so on. And whoever reads that letter is going to know what positive qualities that ancestor had through time. And that's going to be so very special to the family, to the genealogy effort, and so on. So this is a gift that just lasts and lasts and lasts. And I want to emphasize with you that that's why I want to share how to write one of these letters. So, so important. Now, I want to mention to you, you received a packet of handouts And pages 2 and 3 of those handouts are especially going to be helpful if you've already printed them out, because you can take notes on them and use them to help you create your letter today. If you haven't done that yet, I'll pretty well walk you through it, and you can still grab a plain piece of paper and make notes of the same types of things and customize about how you'll write it, how you'll present it, and so on. So let's talk about who you might write to during this season. And I'm going to bypass Thanksgiving for a moment and skip right over to the Christmas holidays and Hanukkah and everything else that's so special, all the cultures and the religions of the world. You could write to your immediate family, and that would be, depending on your age, if you're not that old, you could be writing to your brothers and sisters. Don't write to just one though. It's important to write to all of them because you want each one to feel equal and special in your heart. So each one is going to say a little bit different sentiment, but they'll all be positive and they'll all be unique. If you write to your parents, the same is true. And it may be that you're in a family where you're living with a step parent. Write to the step parent as well. Write to your natural parents, no matter where they are, because one's going to end up talking to the other and saying, "What did you think of your letter?" "Oh, I didn't get one." You don't want to be in trouble on that. So equal treatment to each, if you're writing to parents, if you're writing to step parents like that. Grandparents, if you're writing to grandparents, all grandparents, not just one, not just two, all who may still be with you in this lifetime. We'll talk a little bit later on with something Carol alluded to. What if your grandparents or some other loved one has passed? Is it too late to write a letter? No, it actually is not. As a matter of fact, I'll talk about that right now. Somebody has passed that was dear to you, and you may have had some regrets about what you forgot to say, what you neglected to say in the way of gratitude to that person, and you're thinking, "Oh gosh, it's too late now." But I'm here to tell you, not too late, not too late. Write that letter as if that person were still alive and were sitting across the table from you, and say everything it is you wanted to say that was positive. And when you're writing that letter, try to do that in a quiet space. You might have very mild music going on. You might perhaps have no music, but have some candles lit, something a little bit special to help you remember that person and focus on what it is you want to say to them. And then when you've finished that letter, you can, yes, you really can present it. Again, find a special location, such as the beach at sunset or sunrise, such as next to a mountain stream, such as if you come from a culture that has an ofrende, honoring your ancestors, so there's some kind of a little altar in your home, being near that is a good place. When you find your good and special place, read that letter aloud, because I believe, you don't have to believe this too, but I believe that when we speak our words, the souls we're speaking to are paying attention. They hear us and they tune in, and it becomes a together time, and you can really make that a meaningful moment. Once you've written that letter, once you've spoken it aloud, what do you want to do with it? It depends on what you've written inside. Is it so highly personal that no other person should read it? For example, if you wrote to a spouse who passed away and it's not meant for anyone else's eyes, that's a very private letter, and you want to make sure it is destroyed, but in an appreciative way. If you're next to that mountain stream, you can tear it up into small pieces and float them down the stream. You could do the same thing at the beach by sending it into the ocean waves in small pieces, or you could bury it very deeply in a place that no one else knows. Those are ways to to honor that letter, but make sure it remains private. On the other hand, if what you've written is something that would be a blessing to, let's say, your children, if it was about their father or their mother, you want to be able to present that letter to them to save and make sure it gets into their hands over time and say, this is what I wrote about your dad, your mom, and I want you to save it always. And they will, because again, it will tell them what it was that was special about that parent or grandparent or whoever you're writing to, or sibling. You know, that if there's a family where there's been an untimely death of a sibling, you know, one of the children, this is going to be very meaningful to the children who remain behind. So that's what I wanted to mention as we went into an aside here about what to do if you're writing to a deceased loved one. Also, yeah, well, friend, you loved your friend too. So we've talked about that. Let's talk about other people. We talked about writing perhaps to your grandparents and to all of them, writing to your children, to all of them, each one individually. You could write to your neighbor. If you've had some wonderful neighbors for a long time, that would be a nice gesture. As a matter of fact, I did that for my neighbors once. I have a little show and tell book here. You don't get to read the whole thing, but yes, my husband and I did write this letter to talk to our, you know, to give to our friends, the Koskis next door. And it was actually to commemorate their 50th wedding anniversary. But it was a good opportunity to talk about how much they had meant in our lives and how much we valued them. So that's an idea. You could write to your boss. You could write to, if you have a small office and there are not too many co-workers, or a small department with not too many co-workers, you could write an individual letter to each of your co-workers. You could write to your employees if you're the boss. Same idea applies. If the department is too large, that's simply not practical. And if you're going to write to one, you should write to all. So it's just an option. Another one would be to write to a mentor or mentee. And that would be a very special letter as well. By the way, I see in the chat session, Susan Clarence said the handout is spectacular. Thank you. And I say, you're welcome, Susan. My pleasure. And Susan has written, we had friends and family write letters to my son to open on his 21st birthday. Oh, that is neat. He is now 15. So you've got a time capsule going. There is a letter from my mom for him waiting to be opened. Oh, she died 10 years ago. It's even postmarked and sealed. That is so special. So meaningful to get these things in writing, because think about it. If you're just texting, it's gone. It's just conversation. If you're writing emails, it's useful, but only as long as that email gets saved and you can find it again, or you've printed it. Quite often computers crash and that kind of history is gone, or else you leave it in your inbox and it slips down, 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 and 650 messages later, because it had the wrong subject line, you still can't recognize it. And someday you go, oh, my inbox is too big. I'm just going to delete everything older than a year. There it went. So I recommend getting these things not only written, but in tangible form on a piece of paper and into those people's hands. You can even add to that by recording your letter and giving them a recording of you reading it as well, which, gosh, we're delving into multimedia, aren't we? That's great. So there are ways to enhance that presentation and so on. So that's useful too. A couple of guidelines when you're writing your letter is, one of them is to be 100% positive. You know, if we know this person very well, We know their positive and their negative qualities, but this is a letter to be writing only about their positive qualities. There should never be any shoulding or buts or finger pointing implied in that letter. It's 100% positive. You don't want to taint your letter with anything else. We talked about texts and emails. Tweeting is another thing that's just conversation. It doesn't get saved. Everything is well intended, but it's temporary. If you just say thank you to somebody, even if you talk about it for a few minutes, all they remember a year from now is, I think she said some nice things about me. I wonder what they were. If you get it in writing, they won't have to wonder. They'll have it right there and they can feel really good again by reading it. And you've got time now. It's good to take time now. Yes, we have a pandemic. Yes, most of us are stuck at home for a little longer than we would be. And we don't get to go to the movie theater and all those other entertainment diversions that we normally would do. So what do we do at home? Think about the people you love. Write them a letter. It can bring meaning to a relationship. It can give someone confidence that they really are valued. You know, imagine how many people go to their deathbeds thinking, I wonder if I made a difference in my life, really, or in anyone else's life. Did my life have meaning? And if they've had one of these letters, they're going to know they made a difference. My cousin Linda was a school teacher in 6th grade, 8th grade. I think she taught mostly 6th grade. And she taught for 25 or 30 years. And she had the reputation of being everybody's favorite teacher. I know this because my brother was one of her students. And I know this anyway because I know what she's like, just wonderful, positive individual. Well, she passed away a few years ago, and she was in hospice for a few weeks before she did. And the family apprised us of that fact and invited us in her last few days to come over and say hello to her. I wrote her a letter talking about her teaching career and how many students' lives she had affected in a positive way, and how they might have learned values from her that they even brought to their own family of origin, and they might have brought those values to their own children someday. Knowing her as I did, I know that she really, really made a positive difference in those lives. And I started doing the math and figured out she had affected directly well over 1,000 lives during her teaching career. And indirectly, who knows how many more. And so I made the point in this letter, Linda, you did indeed make a positive difference in your life, and you should be very proud of yourself. And I read that aloud to her as she was lying in her hospital bed at home. And she had tears dripping down her face. And she said, thank you. And she said, I love you. And it was such a special time. A life celebration was held for her quite a long while later. And they brought out that letter and asked me to read it aloud again at that event. So they did save it, and the family did treasure it. Like I say, you just never know. So letter writing, people say, oh, it's such a lost art. No, it's something people haven't done in a while, and maybe a pen in hand, or even creating a letter on the computer, which is okay too, as long as you hand sign it later. They may feel a little foreign at first, a little unfamiliar, but you can really warm to the experience and just compose them thoughtfully, give them the attention you would the relationship you have with that individual. That person is worth it. So today you're going to get some some insights as to how to plan and write those letters, some considerations for packaging and presenting it. You'll get individual guidance for your own letter, and you'll get a solid start on your first draft. So having the right words is vital. And I want to show you an example of those right words. This happens to be a list of 100 words to describe a military service member. And you can select from words like that for the person you're writing to if it's a military service member. In my book, which is called How to Write Heartfelt Letters to Treasure for Special Occasions and Occasions Made Special, in the appendix, you'll find 15 of these word lists. There are 72 words in each list for different demographic groups, such as someone religious or spiritual, an older woman, a middle-aged woman, a teen girl, a younger man, a supervisor or employee, if you're writing to someone at work, a teacher, coach, mentor, or student, even a product creator or stellar service provider. So you have words that you can select from when you're thinking about the individual you're going to write to. And I would say, circle every word that seems to apply, and then pick from those and focus on the top 2 or 3 qualities, and maybe give examples in your letter of each of those qualities in action. So let's talk about the general letter components. And I'm using my son's model. By the way, those letters he and his bride wrote, those were his idea. His idea, not her idea, his idea. Who knew? I love it. I love it. I love that he paid attention and he knew what would be meaningful and special. And I love how he presented his letter, and even in these little bookmarks, and you've got a handout that shows that bookmark. There's a list of 5 components in a letter. And this is essentially following the model he set up, where you start with a shared memory that you both treasure, just to kind of act like an icebreaker. And then you move into talking about the person's most admirable qualities, perhaps with examples. Then talk about the positive difference this person has made in your life or in the lives of others. For example, a community worker, a volunteer makes a difference in a lot of people's lives, and you can write to that individual and show them that you acknowledge what a special part they play. Then express your gratitude, and then sign it. That's how simple it can be. That's actually writing the letter, but let's talk about planning for it for a moment. If you're planning to frame it, it can only be 1 page. It's got to fit within the frame you're choosing, so it's going to help you determine what margins you have to use in your letter and what font size is still going to be readable. And then you kind of have to tailor how much you can say in that 1 space. So planning ahead, buy the frame first if it is going to be framed. And if they've got a mat board in there, that takes away some more of that space. So see what's left and write accordingly. So that's one factor. Nice stationery, what do you do about that? I mean, you can go to a paper supply house and they're going to say, okay, how many reams do you want? And a ream is 500 sheets. That's how they sell it. And you're like, I'm not going to write that many letters. So here's the thought. Compose your letter. Either go to a place like FedEx office or some other office center that does copies, Staples, something like that, Office Depot, and see what papers they have available. If you're going to handwrite your letter, you can buy a few sheets from them. If you're going to print it out on the computer, you can print it out on plain paper and then go have it photocopied onto the nice paper, or take the sheets they gave you and print onto that. Just remember, if it's generated from a computer, it should be hand signed, which means don't sign it before you go to the copy center, sign it after. So that we want to do. You can get really nice stationery, and I think I'm personally partial to a white linen type of paper. But you see, if you go to run that through an inkjet printer, the color may run a little bit. It may look a little muddy. So you're better off doing it on plain paper from the inkjet and then photocopying onto the nice paper at the local copy center. Also, you can have a colored letter. You know, your ink doesn't have to be black. It can be a different color, or you can have a photo in the side, something that brings in a little color or a little border or something like that. So you can print out on an inkjet, but I recommend, even if you do it on nice paper from an inkjet printer, don't use that as your original, because it can get wet, the colors can run, and in a high humidity environment, that would be so sad over time if that happened. Whereas colored toner from a color copy won't run like that. It'll stay where it belongs. So those are some precautions. When you're going to sit down to write, oh, I want to mention something. When we talk about toner and ink and so on. If you've got a letter that's been written or copied using a toner process, be careful. I mean, ideally, you don't want to fold your letter, but if you're in a position where you have to fold your letter in order to mail it, here's something to remember, something called ghosting. If you have a letter and you fold it into thirds this way, what you're going to find is inside this part, the Postal Service has automated sorting equipment that's very high temperature, and it will cause the toner to bleed images onto the other surface in here. I mean, here, if it goes onto the blank part and bleeds, it's not a problem because that's still readable, but in here, it's a problem. So you can prevent the problem by folding your letter to the outside. Then none of the surfaces will hit any other surface that matter. So when you've got toner and you have to fold your letter, remember to fold it in that way with the print to the outside. Now, besides frames for a letter, there are also display jackets that you can find sometimes, like certificate holders, if you will. A lot of certificate holders, most of them are made for holding something that measures 8.5 by 11, like a standard piece of paper. Sometimes they're tri-fold. If you could pretend that was a certificate folder and it was folded like this with a little decorative design, and then it opens up and there's your letter in the middle section. You can get those kinds of things too. Vaudeville.com sells those. It's unfortunate they don't sell them in real small quantities, but if you suspect that you're going to like the idea of writing these letters, get one there, select a design that you can use for all your letters, and buy a box of 25 of them. And you'll find it's very affordable per holder to buy a box of 25. Otherwise, go to your local stationery store and see what they have in the way of certificate holders. And that's another way you can display your letter. If you're going to mail it, and you're going to mail it flat, but it's not in a certificate holder and it's not in a frame, you're just using a large envelope. What you can do is to put a nice piece of white cardboard on the back, the same size, wrap that in some kind of plastic, tape the loose edges around, because the purpose is to let the cardboard help the folder not get folded, spindled, or mutilated in transit. And then you put the plastic encased letter into the large envelope. You can get 9 by 12 envelopes. If you've got one of those certificate holders and you're putting your letter in a certificate holder, you can get a 10 by 13 envelope, and that will be big enough to hold that. So you could use that to mail it in a certificate holder if you chose. And we talked about uniform treatment. You know, if you write to one sibling, write to the rest of them, and so on, and the same with parents, the same with grandparents. because you don't want any hurt feelings from someone feeling left out. So be very thoughtful if you're going to write these letters. But guess what? It's the holiday gift giving season, and you're likely to want to write something thoughtful to each one anyway as their gift. No law says you have to spend money, big money, on a gift to have it be appreciated and treasured. This letter is going to be really closer to priceless in terms of its long-lasting value. I recommend that these letters are the best gift you can give. And if you want to enhance the experience, and I'm thinking right now of someone in the military who's overseas, and you might want to send them this letter, or maybe they don't have a place to hang on to it. So you might want to read it to them in a recorded message or in an email or in a Skype session, and tell them that you're going to save the original copy of the letter for a time when they come home on leave and so on. And so that'll be treasured. If you can give recorded versions of that letter, you reading the letter to them, that's very special. Whatever they're capable of receiving when they're overseas in their situation, engage in multimedia. You know, you verbalize it to them, you keep it, whatever. Let's see here. I think that part is done. Shall we talk about what you want to, just give you a moment to have a chance to write that letter. How about that? Does that sound like a good idea? We'll set aside about 15 minutes, and you can be writing about that. We might go 20 minutes and so forth. From time to time, one of us may interrupt with something. Be sure and use that chat session. I want to tell you, if you are writing a highly personal letter and you have questions that you don't want everybody to know, you can address your question in the chat session to me alone. Down at the bottom where it says to everyone, if you click the arrow to the right, look for Lynette Smith in there, click that, and then I'll be the only one to see those words and that question. And I'll answer it privately during this time while all of you are writing a first draft. Before we get started though, are there any questions that anyone has that they'd like to pose before?
I do have one. Is there anything that is too, when you think about writing a letter of appreciation, the first thing you think of is it has to be something that's monumental, as against something that's very simple. What are your thoughts on writing a letter that just is simple?
Simple is good. And simple can be long and simple can be short. But simple, this brings up a really good point, because what you can get a piece of paper out or the computer out and you start to write and you go, I'm so intimidated. Is this going to be the great American novel or what? Is this going to be special enough? And the fact is, the best way to approach this, I think, is to pretend the person you're writing to is just sitting across the table from you and you're talking to them in your own comfortable conversational words, and write those words down as if you're speaking to the individual. This is, after all, the first draft. You are going to have another draft, at least, of this letter. So your first draft is just to get it out there in whatever way it occurs to you to think about it. And just think of it as a conversation. I believe one of our notes, yeah, here we go. Page 2 in the presentation. I told you about the general approach to it and what are the components inside that letter, with starting with a shared treasure memory. Remember when we did such and such? Wasn't that a hoot? You know, and it's an icebreaker. And then you dig in and you say, I was just thinking how special you are to me. Here are some of the things I most admire about you. And then you start talking about those things. And then you can segue then into, you have made such a difference in my life. From you, I've learned this and I've learned that. Or if it's a public community figure, look at all the lives you've impacted, like with my cousin Linda, all the lives you impacted through your students. And I'm so impressed, and you are a model to me. I want to be, I think this is just great. I so admire you. And then you just say, thank you for who you are. And, if appropriate, I love you, and you sign your name, and that's your letter. So it doesn't have to be scary, really doesn't. Does that answer it, Carol?
Yes, it does. My other question is, there have been times when I've written letters and I get down to maybe the last line of it, and either I miss a word, or there's a blot of ink on the paper and I have to start all over again. And sometimes that can be a little frustrating. Any little tips as to how one can correct without having to rewrite an entire letter?
Well, if you're writing it by hand
Mhm.
and you're using a fountain pen, which I know you're partial to,
Yes.
I don't know how to correct the ink things except with a stupid whiteout, and it's going to look like stupid whiteout. And if it's a long letter, and if it's, it's multiple pages, you only have to correct the one page. That's the good news. If it's a short letter, you only have to correct the one page, so that's the good news.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
I'm sorry, Carol, but
but that's true.
Woman up.
It's just like, oh, darn, I gotta do it again.
Oh, man. Well,
and sometimes when you're doing it again, the phrasing and the words come out differently. And then so you end up writing almost a different letter.
I find that, honestly, I'm going to confess, when I write thank you notes, I compose them on the computer, and then I handwrite them in the thank you note. And when I'm handwriting them, I want to change it. And I find I do. Well, it is what it is. I guess before you want to change it, you just say, how much is it going to impact this page that I'm redoing? Same length, all cool, but different length, rethink it. Do I want to do all the pages after that too? You gave, or let me ask you a question, Carol. Would it be out of your comfort zone to compose on the computer and then copy it as a handwritten letter?
No, that would be okay.
Because that way you could refine it on the computer during multiple drafts until you felt you were satisfied.
Usually I do on a note paper, and I will draft it that way and then transfer it to the actual sheet. But a computer would be fine too.
If it's a convenient way and a natural feeling way to compose, then that's great. If it isn't, well, I hope you like that fountain pen a lot.
Well, I'm telling you, this is the one I'm working with for this month, and it's been fine. So I haven't had any problems with it. But Susan just recommended Faber-Castell has an ink eraser correction pen for $160. I'm going to have to check that out.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice ink eraser correction pen. I'm loving that.
Yeah, so am I. Because there's some that you can use, but it also damages the paper, so that you end up having to throw it out anyway and starting from scratch. But that's good to know. I'm going to make a note of that. And you mentioned, is it vaudeville.com?
Vaudeville, B as in boy, AUD. Oh. VILLE.com.
Would you write that in the chat in case there's anybody else?
Sure, hang on a sec. There. Done. So yeah, that's for the certificate holders. And they've got some really attractive ones. They've got one that's all black, but it's got a kind of a leafy border on it in that trifold format. And they've got another one that's like that I like. that is, it's a blue color with gold going up on that border, that leafy border. So I like those.
Okay.
So what else? Are there other questions? Again, you can, if you want a question answered publicly during the quiet time, put it in the chat box and I'll answer it publicly. Just put it as typing to everyone. And if you want privately to me, then just select my name first and I'll respond to you independently during that time. Let's go ahead and plan to go until about 5 minutes after 3. Does that sound like a good plan?
Okay. After 2?
After 2. Oh, the other time on the clock, not the 3 o'clock one. Heavens no. Yes, quite right, quite right. Yes, 5 after 2. So there'll be a kind of a silent time. We may be interrupting at some point to interject one thought or two, but without being too disruptive to your writing process. Well, here's one thing I wanted to do before we started. In case you didn't get the handout, I wanted to give you a reading verbally of some random positive words for these different demographic groups. A smaller child, congenial, fun, loving, respectful, witty. A preteen child, calm, easygoing, kind-hearted, proficient, wholesome. A teen boy, conscientious, hardworking, musical, resourceful, upbeat. A teen girl, communicative, even-tempered, loyal, reliable, well-rounded. A younger man, comical, forgiving, mature, quirky, well-read. A younger woman, dedicated, honest, organized, service-oriented, wise. A middle-aged man, conscientious, good-natured, neighborly, reliable, warm. A middle-aged woman, creative, hospitable, motivational, self-confident, well-liked. An older man, eloquent, intelligent, patient, self-sacrificing, youthful. An older woman, empathetic, indulgent, no nonsense, self-educated, well-read. Someone religious or spiritual, contemplative, humane, peaceful, selfless, welcoming. A military service member, clever, focused, meticulous, spirited, worthy. A supervisor or employee, businesslike, ethical, logical, reputable, well-liked. A teacher, coach, mentor, or student, conscientious, fluent, nurturing, respectful, witty. A product creator or stellar service provider, creative, honest, old-fashioned, refreshing, wonderful. Happy writing. We'll talk at 5 minutes after 2.
Lynette, I'm thinking that the note that I'm writing is best served in a note card, you know, just a pretty note card rather than a formal letter. Would that be acceptable, do you think?
If it's big enough to hold everything you want to say, and again, I've suggested the formula of an icebreaker followed by the positive qualities, followed by the impact they've had on you or on others, and then your expression of gratitude. If you can get all that into a note, I suppose so. And of course, they have these larger note cards that are blank entirely on the left and right panels when you open them. And yeah, you can continue on the back. So you could, in theory, if you write small enough, get the whole thing in there.
Yeah, because I was thinking that there's a note card that I have, and when I look at the cover of the note card, it reminds me of this person. And so that was kind of the icebreaker I was thinking of.
Sure.
And then being able to use that in the body of the letter.
Right. Okay. I'm going to make noise for a second.
Okay.
I keep my note cards here. I've got a good sized one, a selection of Georgia O'Keeffe note cards. And they're, like I say, they're good size, but yes, entirely blank here. And you could theoretically carry it over on the back. But beautiful, you know?
Yeah. And you mentioned in the comments here about your best effort in the final draft and having somebody else have a look at it. When you're writing, how critical is it to have, you know, proper grammar and spelling and all of that in the note if that's not authentic to you?
It needs to come across still being in your voice. You're not inviting someone to reword it for you. But if you would be embarrassed by a spelling error, then you'll want someone else to look at it. If you would not be embarrassed by a spelling error, then keep it personal and individual. But keeping in mind that this may last generations. And maybe that's okay if your great-grandmother misspelled a word, you know? How sweet.
Well, you know, for instance, I tend to spell the English way.
Sure.
You know, with the extra U's and some of those things. And that comes naturally. So sometimes I may not necessarily catch that unless I'm reading it through or something, you know. So I just wondered if...
Yeah, you should leave it alone. It's okay. That's you.
Okay. All right. Well, that helps. And I appreciate the information about the note cards too.
Sure. If you think you can get the whole message said, yeah. The other thing is you could have a note card just act as a jacket for a folded letter. I think you muted yourself.
Yes, I did. But that's also very true. And that could be the manuscript opening of the letter. Perfect. Yeah. Because I know I've done that on occasion, you know, whether it's a birthday card and then just written a little note that's more personal on the inside. And folded.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to encourage, let's see, okay. Encourage you all to just let your words flow. You can always organize later on your next draft. Okay. Don't get all tongue-tied and think that first one has to be perfect. Just get it out. Get it out. That's what you want to do.
And I think we have about another 5 minutes or so of writing. I loved your comment.
Thanks.
I think it's what you say about having someone edit or at least read through what you've written is really critical, because there are times when you write something and a simple word like the word "and" is misspelled, and you see it because your mind is telling you that it is spelled correctly. Because it is such a simple word, much less if the word is more complicated than that.
When I'm at the keyboard and I'm typing the word "the," it comes out HTE so often because my fingers trip up on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll read it later. I'm pretty good having a critical eye over it, but yeah, I need to be careful with some of those things.
I think Susan's comment earlier about the letter that her mom wrote for her son is so beautiful.
I do love it.
You know, um,
Oh, this is great, Susan. I'm seeing your note that just popped up. Wow. I love it, Susan. Oh, yeah, okay. No. I had another couple of thoughts occurred to me. First of all, though, let me go ahead and share what Susan and I have been corresponding privately. I asked her, did you have all those letters to your son written when he was 5? I'm just curious. And she responded, most were when he was 5, but I've added a few along the way. Carol Latham did one, and I've done an updated one. I also started a journal when he was a toddler for my future daughter-in-law. I don't write all the time, but even my son has written some passages to her. I want her to know that there is another mom that has been praying for her all along. It will be my gift to her on their wedding day. I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you, Susan. I wanted to share too, a lot of what's in this book I wrote is of value in the appendix. And I told you about those 15 lists of positive words. And you can use them for more than just writing letters. And of course, writing letters is important, but here's an example of other ways you can do those. You can make, let me try to get this there. You see the framed letter of my son's on the one side. On the other side, though, you can list the words in a very colorful way and display them in a plaque that describes someone special. And then at the top center, there's something called a word cloud. And the word cloud can be created at different places. One of my favorites, it's very easy to do, is wordle.net. I'm going to type that into the chat too. WORDLE.net. And if you go there, they have a box into which you can type these positive words. And to get some of them to print larger than others, it depends on how often you print the name or the word. So if I was writing one of those to my husband, I would be saying Ben Smith 3 times. Ben Smith, Ben Smith, Ben Smith. And, or I would go Ben, 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 Smith, Smith, Smith. It really won't end up mattering. And then the traits that I think are more positive, more stand out more than others amongst the positive traits, I would type those words twice in the box. And then the rest of the words I would type just once. And then you press a button and it rearranges those words into a word cloud. And if you find that the name, the first name and last name are not strategically placed to where they're easy to read, then click the button again and find an arrangement where they are. And keep clicking until the name comes out right. And then the other words are going to arrange themselves around that. And the most important words are going to be bigger than others. So the person's name will be biggest of all. Then the important positive traits will be second. And then the other positive traits will be third. So that's another way to use those lists. And I have such a good time with all of that. We did a baby shower once, and for one of my grandchildren. And in this case, I wrote up the words in different baby colors, of course, and I asked the people who attended to cut out the word they most hoped the quality that the baby would have. And we happened to know the baby's name already. So we had that little planter there with the star in it that says Kaylin's Choo Choo of Wishes. And we'd have the person with the little decorative scissors cut out the word that they wanted, and they'd put their own name on the back of the word and drop it into Kaylin's Choo Choo of Wishes. And then we made this plaque later on for her. And we did something similar for her sister Kaylin. These are our 2 granddaughters, of course. And those are displayed today in their home, and they're really, really nice. And first, we set aside what their parents most hoped for, and then the rest of them, everybody else hoped for. So that makes a nice little project for a shower and a follow-up. Another time I was coming up with the word lists in the first place while I was writing the book, and I was talking to my son and daughter-in-law, and I gave each of them a word list. I gave him one for a young woman and her one for a young man. I said, could you please circle the traits you most admire about your spouse? And then I made a similar plaque to each of them, what Byron loves most about Rachel, what Rachel loves most about Byron. And I made little plaques for them out of those as well. And that's just fun to do those projects. So I wanted to tell you about that. I also wanted to mention one of the things that's in the back of the book is a set of quotations. We've got, come on, I will find it. Here we go. According to a certain theme. Quotations, famous quotations you can put at the beginning or the end of your letter. Like here's a section on love and friendship. The brain does the thinking, but the heart knows more about love than the mind can ever comprehend. And that's by Unknown. But you can take these and use them at the beginning or the end of your letter to add a little special touch. So there are a lot of good tools in this book. Also,
I thought of doing one that was alphabetical, all the different traits that you admire or appreciate about someone, and doing it alphabetically.
Yeah, these are alphabetical here, the way they're presented.
Oh, okay.
and then you just circle the ones you like and you talk about them in
Mhm.
whatever order you want. I won't tell anybody if you take them out of alphabetical order. But when you get a little bit stuck sometimes and you're thinking, well, what do I write about? Well, there are sections in here. Here's a theme called General Appreciation. I'm calling this Great Beginnings to Jumpstart Your Sentences. So blank, I thank you so much for being in my life, ... Or you bring so much blank into my life. I really appreciate how you blank because ... So a lot of little jump starts are in there based on theme, recommendation of reference, congratulations, and or looking to the future, and so on. So this book, aside from having wonderful prompts all the way through in the sections on special occasions and on occasions made special, also has a pretty darn wonderful appendix. It can be very useful. I counted one day, that book will help you write 157 different types of letters.
Wow.
So that's
Impressive.
Yeah, so thank you. And well, first of all, best wishes and on the completion and presentation of your letter or letters. And if you have any questions or concerns or encounter rough spots in expressing your ideas in a letter, or you just want to be added to my mailing list to keep in touch on letter writing matters, and one doesn't automatically come with the other, that's two different things, you can email me at Lynette, Lynette, at goodwaystowrite.com. And if you're so inspired to get my book, it's on Amazon. You can also get more information at the website, goodwaystowrite.com. And I think I told you about what's in it. If you, for some reason, want an inscribed or signed copy, you can order it directly from me. And that information is on the website as well. And unless you have anything to add, Carol, or any additional questions?
No, I didn't have any additional questions. In the chat is your website so that everyone can have a look at that. And this has been fun as usual. So as we close this session, I just remind you that information on Lynette is available on the MUZEO website, www.museo.org. And Lynette's website is www.goodwaystowrite.com. Again, goodwaystowrite.com. And there'll be a follow-up email. So do let us know your thoughts on this program. We want to continue to bring relevant programs to the community. So this is one of the ways that we're able to make sure that what we provide is of relevance. There is also a support the MUZEO button if you so choose. And as always, your generosity is appreciated. Special thank you to Berkenda for her work behind the scenes. We couldn't do this without her. And of course to you, Lynette, for helping us navigate through the nuances of writing these very special letters. Special thank you to our viewing audience for taking the time this afternoon to spend with us. Until the next time, stay safe, stay well. Bye for now.